Okay, guys, you should have had a clean piece of notebook paper. Go ahead and get the notes titled. I can apply the quotient exponent property. Okay, so first of all, quotient means the answer to a division problem. So in all of these problems, if we have, if the quotient rule is present, then it's going to have that fraction bar. It's going to look like a division problem. Okay. Okay, so if we have 4 to the 6th over 4 to the 2nd, that's the same thing as saying 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 on the top, and on the bottom it's just 4 times 4. So that's how it looks written out in expanded form. Okay? So if we wanted to do this in expanded form, we would write it all out, and then we would cross simplify. So meaning we would cancel out anything that is the same on the top and the bottom. So if since this 4 that I just crossed off and this 4 is the same, we can cancel those out. Same thing with this second 4 and this next 4. So you can cross cancel out anything that is the same. So that would leave us with 1, 2, 3, 4 4s on the top. So that's the same thing as saying 4 to the 4th power. Now there's nothing on the bottom, so we can use 1 for a placeholder, but that's also the same thing as just saying 4 to the 4th power, since it's on the top of the fraction. So we can write it out in expanded form, okay, or we can also apply the quotient property, which is if they have the same base, so these have the same base of 4, we can subtract the exponents. So if I took 4, 6 minus 2, that would get me 4 to the 4th power, which is the same thing that I got when I cross-canceled. So I'll write that out here in just a second, but let's look at a different one. So if I have 8 to the 5th over 8, remember that we need to put an exponent of 1 on anything that doesn't have an exponent. So you're going to want to subtract the smallest exponent from the larger exponent. Okay, so since 1 is smaller than 5, I'm going to bring the 1 up here and take 5 minus 1 to get 8 to the 4th. And you can put that over 1 if you want, or you can leave it as 8 over 4. So if they have the same base, if they're being divided, and they have the same base, we're going to subtract the exponents. And I'm going to put a little asterisk that you should always take the largest exponent minus the smaller one. And I'm going to show you why here in a second. Okay. So a little bit later on in the next couple of videos, you're going to learn about the negative exponent rule. But I'm going to help you take care of negative exponents because eventually we won't ever be able to write our answers with any negative exponents. And right now, if I took that bottom exponent of 7 and I moved it to the top, I would get 6 to the negative 4th power. And we can't have negative exponents, and there's a way that we can deal with negative exponents. But for right now, since we haven't learned that rule yet, we're going to deal with them by subtracting the largest minus the smallest. So since 7 is bigger than 3, then we're going to bring the 3 down here and take 7 minus 3. So that cancels out these on top because I brought it right down here. Okay, so I'm going to get 7 minus 3 is 6 to the 4th power. And notice I kept it on the bottom because it was already on the bottom. But since I don't have anything on top, I have to. That's not an option. I have to have a placeholder of a 1. Another way to look at this is if we wrote this out longhand, and we cross-canceled the way I showed you in the first problem, everything that's left over is on the bottom of our fraction. So it would need to stay on the bottom so that we get the same answer. So if you always take the largest minus the smallest, that will help you out. Okay, now it's going to get tricky when it comes to negative exponents, but that's okay, we can deal with those. So we have 5 to the 3rd over 5 to the 8th. Okay, so remember, only if they have the same base can we combine them. So these have the same base of 5. Since 8 is larger than 3, I'm going to bring the 3 down here. I'm going to take 8 minus 3, which gets me 5. So 5 to the 5th power. And then I need to have a placeholder on the top. Okay, so I'm going to do a few real quick, but I suggest that you pause the video and see if you can do them on your own before I do them for you. Okay, 6 to the 4th, and this, since it's right next to each other, would be times 3 squared over 6 squared. So since 3 doesn't have anything with the same base, I'm just going to bring that over into my answer. It doesn't move, it stays exactly where it is. Okay, so then I have to deal with the numbers that do have the same base. So since 4 is bigger than 2, I'm going to take 4 minus 2, so I've moved it up to the top. 4 minus 2 is 2, so I get 6 to the 2nd power. And then I'm always just going to put a placeholder of 1 on bottom, just because it's easy to see the fractions still. All right, on this one we have 7 times 4 cubed over 7 to the 5th. So the first thing I notice is that that 7 needs to have an exponent. So I'm going to put an exponent of 1. And then the 4 doesn't have anything to combine with it, so it needs to stay on the top of the fraction. Since 5 is bigger than 1, I'm going to bring the 1 down here and take 5 minus 1 to cancel out that 7 on the top, which leaves me with 7 to the 4th on the bottom. And since there's something already on the top and there's something already on the bottom, then I'm done. So my final answer is 4 to the 3rd over 7 to the 4th. That's my final answer. All right, try this one. Pause the video and try this one on your own. I'm going to go ahead and talk through it. So I'm going to add a 1 to that 5. I can see that I'm going to put the 3's together and I'm going to put the 5's together. So I'm going to pull this one up to the 4 since 4 is larger. So I get 5 to the 3rd on top. That takes care of the 5's. And then since 9 is bigger than 2, I'm going to bring the 2 down here. So I get 3 to the 7th on the bottom. And that's going to be my final answer. Okay, now you have to be careful when there's negatives. The same rule applies, you just have to be careful on which one's bigger. Since one of these is positive and one of these is negative, it's easy to see that the 6 is going to be larger than the negative 2. Guys, it's still a subtraction problem, so put the subtraction sign there and then rewrite the exponent. So it's going to be 6 minus a negative 2. Now you have to be careful with that because 6 minus a negative 2 is actually 4 to the 8th power. Make sure you write that down correctly and type that into your calculator. Since there's nothing on top, I'm going to hold that with a 1. All right, I'm going to give you a few practice problems to try on your own. Make sure you bring them over to me to show me when you are done. All right, there they are.